On this, we're joined by Sky News Washington correspondent Annalise Nielsen. Annalise, look, if you saw it and you didn't know anything about it, you might think it's reality TV, but it's absolutely real. Extraordinary this morning.
Extraordinary. I've been speaking to people who know a bit about US history, and it's hard to think of a comparison of just such a confrontational Oval Office meeting when you've got allies like that. Who needs enemies? But it does seem like there is still some will behind the scenes to get to a deal, but it is hard to see how that could happen given just how fractured today's meeting was. There was a planned press conference that has now been cancelled. The White House pool is being told that there is no real chance of Donald Trump doing a solo press conference, given he is supposed to travel down to Mar-a-Lago around 5 o'clock local time in a few hours. But anything could change, especially after Volodymyr Zelensky left so abruptly. It's understood he's gone back to his hotel, which is just nearby to the White House, and he is scheduled to do an interview with Fox News around 6 p.m. local time, so in around 4 hours, which they're being told is still planned. What we have seen is a statement from the White House from Donald Trump himself, saying we had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion, and I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage, I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace. Fox News is also reporting some additional details they say they've obtained from the White House directly, saying that Donald Trump did kick Zelensky out and Zelensky did not leave of his own accord. They've confirmed that the rare minerals deal that was supposed to be signed today was not signed. They've said that the Ukrainians were attempting to reset. The quote that Fox is reporting is, "We're begging to reset," but Rubio, the Secretary of State, and Waltz informed them Zelensky needs to leave the White House grounds and return when he's ready for peace. The president and US officials, according to Fox, said that they felt disrespected by Zelensky's rhetoric and demeanor, cited that he was shrugging and rolling his eyes during the conversation. And it's important to remember there that what we showed was about the last 10 minutes of what was a 50-minute meeting. And there was obviously tension from the get-go. Donald Trump has a particular issue with Ukraine, especially their involvement with his first impeachment. It didn't help that the Bidens had some extremely dubious connections to Ukraine through their son, Hunter Biden, who was working on in a job that there were just continuing questions about what his qualifications were to be on the board of this energy company in Ukraine, and that's never really been answered. What we have seen is a real collapse for support among Republicans. There is this rhetoric that's really taken hold among rank and file MAGA Republicans in particular, that the money that's been sent to Ukraine has been stolen, wasted, that America's been taken advantage of, and America's funded the war in its entirety. Of course, it's always much more complicated than that. And the Europeans have put a ton of money into Ukraine. And while the Americans have sent hundreds of billions of dollars in support, much of that has been through the US stockpiles, which they themselves needing to replenish anyway because they expire. So when we talk about the money that's being sent as well, we're also talking about a fraction of what they spent in Afghanistan over decades. So these are the conversations that are happening in real time. And also, Democrats have just completely lost any ability to, among themselves, put a foothold in to push back on this. What they could do is vote against the continuing resolution, which will keep the government funded next week. But they don't have any kind of centralized leading force at the moment. They're so bereft of leadership after Joe Biden's continuing stay in the White House far after he should have retired, and their annihilation at this election. Really, I mean, we're told it's not a landslide. When Donald Trump wins every swing state, it's as much of a landslide as you're going to get in a modern America. So these are all the factors that are playing into what happened today. It's not necessarily over, but this was far worse than I think anyone was anticipating was going to come out of the meeting today.
Absolutely. And so many things to the meeting. I mean, it's very peculiar for a vice president to interject in the manner in J.D. Vance did. And the one person that's probably smiling through all of this in Russia is Vladimir Putin.
And look, this has been the question time and again for Donald Trump. Why were you so confident calling Vladimir Zelensky a dictator, but you don't call Putin a dictator at the same time? And he addressed that a few different ways in this Oval Office meeting, saying that he just wants a deal and this is what has to happen. If he starts calling people bad names in the negotiations, no one's going to want to come to the table. But then that again doesn't address why he's happy to call Vladimir Zelensky a dictator but not Putin. But then yesterday when he was asked about it, he joked and said that he couldn't recall calling him that. So it seemed like they thought they had a better deal coming than what was landed on by the time that the two leaders were meeting today. And it does seem like it was that pushback from Zelensky during that Oval Office interaction that they more expected him to sit there and take it, what they were going to say. And so that seems like it really inflamed all of this as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if JD Vance wasn't completely transparent in saying, we think you were out there campaigning for the other party during the last election. Zelensky did visit a munitions factory in Pennsylvania. That was quite clearly to emphasize the fact that the money being spent on the Ukrainian war effort is being spent in America. It is going to American manufacturers, and Pennsylvania was the most critical swing state at the last election. So it was a goodwill thing to be emphasizing, hey, you're sending us money, but it's paying for jobs here. This is a win-win against Russia, which is supposed to be an adversary. But obviously, the MAGA group element of the Republican Party hasn't seen it that way. We're losing kind of that support on Capitol Hill among the old guard of the Republican Party, with Mitch McConnell stepping down. And just the political capital it would take to push back on something like this. No one in the Republican Party really has that at the moment. Donald Trump is such an influential figure. He's so solidified his power here. And for anyone watching this issue in America, we did know this was coming. We did know that Trump wasn't going to be in there fighting for the Ukrainian cause. But for most Americans at the last election, they were given two choices. And when this was an issue, it wasn't a primary issue for most people. The economy was. They wanted America to be seen as stronger on the world stage. And most Americans just didn't feel like Kamala Harris was going to be the stronger element in global affairs. Donald Trump's certainly showing he knows how to assert himself and America on the world stage, but there is still widespread support for Ukraine in the US. And so this will be a contentious issue.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been quite a week in Washington. We've seen the British leader, we've seen the French leader, and then we've seen what's happened today with Volodymyr Zelensky. Annalise, we will, of course, talk throughout the course of the morning on our lead story. Huge story this morning. Thanks for that.